Hi there, and welcome to Impact, the program that focuses on people and organizations who are making an impact in our community, in our state, and in our country. My name is Kelly, and today we're going to be joined by several different Republican candidates in our primary coming up on May 17th. One quick note, by the way, you might see some of our different candidates in the same setting, in the same chair. They're not running against each other, and they're not running on the same ticket. So we just want to make sure and let everybody know each one of these candidates is running on their own merit in their own race, and we're asking for your support as you listen to each one of them and make your own decisions. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us today. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Bryan Scholz. I'm not from here. Like lots of people, I'm not from here. Kind of interestingly enough, when I first arrived, no one could spell Scholz. And now the German chancellor is named Olaf Scholz. So I have the same last name. So maybe that's going to help with things. But I'm running for Senate. I'm interested in changing things. The Senate's terrible. I want to get in. It's essentially full of rhinos. There's a lot of good candidates running, but I hope I'm right there in with the pack to change things, to improve things. The last 2 years have been awful. Things have to change.
So tell me a little bit about the job description for Senate.
So for Senate, the job description, I think people would argue what the job description was. Is on one hand, it's, there is this representation for your people in your community and your community. But I would say now, looking at how bad our Senate is, the job description is someone who's going to vote correctly to hold up constitutional liberties, to hold up freedom. We have a Senate that basically was complacent with everything that went wrong in the last 2 years. There was vax mandates. There was people fired from the lab. Mm-hmm. There was kids in school wearing masks for really no apparent reason. There was a push of these hysterical reactions to essentially what was a cold. And, I sound that people will argue about this. I have 2 doctors in my family. They're not vaccinated. They say it's cold. People have different opinions. Either way, there was an overreaction, and it was too much, and it was no excuse for taking away people's liberties or closing their businesses or firing them or going into debt.
Right. So you would consider yourself a constitutional candidate?
I would say I'm a constitutional candidate. Okay. I'm very into the Constitution, but I'm very much a proponent of Western civilization. Western civilization is great. It's given us all this that we have. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, we've seen that eroded in many ways. And as good as Idaho is, we've seen other places in the world, Austria, Germany with vaccine mandates, Australia with constant, it sounds ridiculous to even say it out loud, but with concentration camps for the unvaccinated or people who flunked their PCR test. We just saw, and this was, now we have the news cycle is always going so fast. It was maybe only 6 weeks ago that they were impounding the trucks of truckers in Ottawa, freezing their bank accounts. I assume some of these people are still in jail. We have people from January 6th that are in jail. This is absurd. It's ridiculous. And this is what we're faced with. So things are great here, and we're so lucky. What are we going to do to keep things great? Because the Senate isn't going to help us.
Right. And that, I think, maybe touch on that a little bit as far as how do you feel our Senate is doing right now?
Our Senate... So there's different, in Idaho, we have different scorecards to rate. There's so many bills to go through, it's hard to keep track of. We look at the American Conservative Union. They rate legislation. We also have the Idaho Freedom Foundation. They rate legislation. Our Senate earns with the Idaho Freedom Foundation something like an F on average. Our local senator in Idaho Falls earns an F, a lifetime rating of an F. How do you get an F for freedom? How do you expect someone who is going to be a proponent for freedom to get an F with the Freedom Foundation? With the American Conservative Union, he has a D-.
Right.
And his scores aren't getting better. They're getting worse. He now has something below 50%. He would get a better score if he didn't even show up.
Right.
That it's mind-boggling.
Well, and talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned rhinos earlier. What's a rhino? Because a lot of people would say Idaho is a ruby red state. It's all Republicans. And so Idaho's safe, right?
Well, so it's interesting. A lot of people probably didn't hear. There's mascots. So there's the Democrats have a donkey, and the Republicans have an elephant. But one of the last acts of the Idaho Senate was to change the Republican mascot for the GOP to a rhino. But actually, I think most people know, at least that are angry. They figured out that rhino is Republican in name only. And so there's different things you could call a rhino, but that's maybe a very polite way of saying someone who's not defending our constitutional liberties, someone who votes for every big government project that comes along, someone who's in a yakky lackey. We need better than that. We have people in the legislature that are good. We have a few senators that are good, but we have maybe 34 senators that are terrible.
Right.
Our senator in Idaho Falls is a perfect rhino. He has a terrible record. He needs to go.
Right. And that's why you stepped into the race. So what kind of experience do you think you bring to the table?
So it's an interesting thing because I think you can answer that in different ways. So I do have a great deal of technical experience. I've lived in different places. So I had a computer company in Berlin. I've worked for big computer companies all over the world, including in the United States. I have a technical background. I understand industry. I worked as a carpenter through college. So I have some real life experience. But what do I really need as a senator? What do we need as a senator? I think what we need as a senator is someone who's going to go and follow the Constitution, the Idaho Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. We need someone who's going to, in very simple terms, actually be able to deal with a conservative rating system. No one likes these rating systems, but they allow us a framework to say, well, how is our senator doing? How is our legislature doing? I will go and I will look at every individual piece of legislation and evaluate it on its merits. But nevertheless, it's not that hard. I will walk away with a perfect rating or 95%, at least an 85% plus with the American Conservative Union, with the Idaho Freedom Foundation. People like Ron Nate, Chad Christensen, Heather Scott, they have great ratings. I will have them on speed dial. We might disagree on some points, but I think we're going to agree on the vast majority of things. And when senators say, "Oh, they don't know how to rate senators," it's garbage. It's just smoke and mirrors.
So I think one of the things that rating system really can tell you without telling you is whether or not somebody actually has a spine. And that's something that we've seen over the last 2 to 4 years is American people are really looking for someone who actually stands for something. And they may or may not agree with every bit of what that person stands for, but they respect the fact that they can stand. And so I guess my question to you, Bryan, is what do you stand for?
Well, I stand for the Constitution and personal liberties. I think that we always have to have this in the framework. So in politics, every election is very important. So we have, it's always been this, the immigration, the high taxes. The last 2 years brought everything to a new level. Yeah. And this is why we have so many people jumping into the ring right now. Things were egregious. What do I stand for? I stand for personal liberty, but in the context of the last 2 years, this means so much. We need people who will say no mandates. We need people who will say no vaccine passports. A vaccine passport is ultimately just a segue into some kind of social credit system. People say a Chinese social credit system. It's a 1984 social credit system. This is a horror show. We have to stand up for our values. And when you talk about a senator who has no spine, okay, I stand for a senator who has some spine. We have a senator who caves into Yaqui and school boards at every single turn. There is no pushback. he has an F with the Freedom Foundation. Our biggest concern right now is freedom and liberty and our rights. And we have someone with an F rating with the Freedom Foundation. That's a lifetime rating, and it's a score that gets worse every year. It doesn't get better.
So what are some things that you're learning through this whole process of stepping into the political arena?
That it takes time, that you'll never be prepared. It's great talking to so many pissed off voters, because I feel like I'm not alone, and I'm encouraged that it's hard when you're sitting there with these lockdowns. I think a lot of people are at home thinking like, what's going on? Am I alone? They've separated people out, and then you go, you start getting out in the world. You maybe go to a school board meeting, and you sense the seething resentment in the room where you're staring at like 7 or 9 people up at a school board meeting. You see the YouTube videos, but when you see it live and you're in the room, everyone in the audience is angry and saying, we can't have masks. There's no science. There's nothing to it. And then you'll see the school board vote unanimously to ignore you and implement mask.
Right.
Where am I going with this? I forgot what the question was.
What you're learning in the process.
It's so gratifying that so many people are enthusiastic about the next election.
Enthusiastic is a good word. And I really feel like the 2020 election is kind of a tipping point. There's a lot of people that are kind of holding back their rage at the government to see if things will turn around November. And so I think this is an important primary. It's an important election in November for there to still be hope in America turning a corner. And, for the last, like you said, for the last 2 years, there has been that just undercurrent of rage that a lot of people have had. They've lost their businesses. They've lost freedom in so many different ways. And now with gas prices going through the roof, they haven't been able to rebuild their businesses and their savings accounts, and they don't want another bailout. They just want the freedom to be able to live their life in the way that God has called them to. And so to be able to see this wave of freedom-loving candidates step up and volunteer to lead the way is really inspiring for a lot of people. What message would you like our audience to be able to take away today?
Well, so a message to take away today is that in spite of the fact that Idaho has been somewhat saved from some of this chaos, it hasn't been Idaho Falls. So the INL, they pushed out, they're very cherry with the numbers, but early retirements and firings for not getting the jab, maybe 500 people. I don't know, maybe 400, 300. Then again, the numbers, it's hard to get real numbers. Right. But we have other senatorial candidates, actually, who are among those who were fired for being too loud or saying the wrong thing or offending liberty. So we go, oh, well, in Idaho Falls, that won't happen. Oh, and the kids don't have masks now. You don't have to listen very long to news and other places to know that this isn't over yet. Right. Fauci is talking about more vaccines. It's as if there's still this low-level war for any doctor who will suggest that the COVID mandates were ridiculous, excessive. I mean, doctors are still getting threatened with their licenses being pulled. There's top doctors saying these vaccines are terrible. Maybe they're a bioweapon. We have a VAERS reporting system that has 25,000 people reported dead from the vaccine. And for people who've gotten into the weeds with this, they know that this is an underreport of between 40 times and 100 times. I mean, we could be talking about just the tip of the iceberg. This is public data at the CDC. Yeah. There's a lot going on. Election integrity. Everyone knows that 2020 stinks for election integrity. I would say it was a complete steal. I'm a chair for Election Integrity Idaho and Southeast Idaho. I work with this a lot. There's no sense that we have safe and secure elections. Idaho in particular, as nice as it is, it's ranked by the Heritage Foundation 38th in the U.S. for election integrity. Yes, when you go, it's clean, it's nice. The people at the front are great, but the voter rolls are messy. I go around. I'm working with Janice McGeehan on her campaign, getting out the word. I'm canvassing, not canvassing, but going door to door, house to house to tell people about my campaign as well. Even with the voter rolls that we have, they're very messy. There's addresses that are wrong. And you just think like, well, how long has that been there? I mean, there's houses that just don't exist. In my neighborhood that I know like the back of my hand, there's all kinds of problems. And we have right now elections that can't be audited. They're not designed to be audited. So it seems like it's okay, but there's really no way to do it. Any financial institution is able to provide a system for auditing. When you get your money out of the ATM, it's pretty much always right.
Yeah.
I don't even check anymore. Why can't we do that with our voting rolls?
Absolutely. And I think just that message that they're coming for Idaho. We're not, it's not like we made it to home base and we're safe. The amount of Zuckerberg money, the amount of big tech and pharma money that is being poured into these conservative pockets in the U.S. is astronomical. And so now is the time to protect Idaho and defend what we love about Idaho, because we're going to lose it if we don't. And so it's not something where we can sit back and say, okay, we're safe and Idaho's good and heaven help those poor people in California or Washington or someplace else. They're coming for us next. And so we need to be on guard, and we need to be standing up now.
So let's put that a little in perspective as far as how safe Idaho is. Now California, Oregon, and Washington have all fallen. Nevada has fallen. Nevada is ruled by Las Vegas. So, and I'm sure that's a corrupt vote. I mean, right. I'm not sure in the sense, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Portland rules Oregon. Oregon, very conservative people. They all want to join Idaho.
Yeah.
This is in Canada. Canada, they're freezing the bank accounts of truckers who had the temerity to say, we don't want to do this vaccine passport thing. This is a road to hell, basically.
Yeah.
We have to stop it now. Their trucks were seized, their accounts were frozen, some are in jail. This was only 6 weeks ago. I mean, we can look to the west, we can look to the north. Election integrity in Utah, we'd like to say, it's rosy, but everything I hear is dreadful. That you think, how can this happen? How can this happen? So, how safe is Idaho? If Idaho was so safe, we'd have a Senate that wasn't lifetime rating of F on average.
Right. Yeah.
It's got to be better. We can do better. People need to get out and vote and try and do something now while we can, because it's going to be much easier to try and take care of it now than later. It's just like with the mask. If we just stood up to the mask uniformly across the board, the rest of this stuff, we could have blocked it. But instead, it's just 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It's just a mask.
Yeah.
It's just your freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So primary's coming up May 17th. And so for Republicans, that is the Republican primary. You have to be a registered Republican, correct? And if you are registered as independent, what's the cutoff for people to actually register to vote in the Republican primary?
I think they can do, if you're unaffiliated, you register that day.
Okay.
That's my understanding. There was a little bit of...
Yeah, I've heard it both ways. I've heard it 30 days before or up to the day of. So I just made sure that I registered and was able to vote. So this primary matters. It's not just another, it'll just be on the fourth page in the newspaper kind of a thing. This one matters. And the candidates that make it through the primary, they matter in November. And so we really want to get the vote out. That's kind of one of the things that we're talking about with each one of these candidates is, if you're not sure about the process, now is the time to get educated. It matters not only for our future, but for the future of our kids and our grandkids. And I think there's enough common folks, I'll say, who have been impacted across Idaho in the last 2.5 years that it's time to take action. It's time for their voices to be heard. And we're really counting on a big turnout for this primary. Have there been any things that you've seen that have just been bright spots in this campaign? What have been some of your favorite parts about this campaign so far?
No, I think I mentioned just talking with hordes of pissed off voters. And it's not that I want pissed off voters, but I want people who are engaged.
Right.
In East Idaho, I think when it's been so good, there's a sleepy quality about it. And it's not to say that the people are sleepy, but, you know, when things are going well, you don't have war on your doorstep. You just think like, oh, it could never happen here. And Boise's far away. You know, I saw a lot of masks when I'd go to Boise, and you don't see that so much here. You don't see the craziness. But, you know, there's been also, I think organizationally, I've seen things just start to emerge. I've seen a great group, Stand Up for Idaho, come up as like a public forum for presenting candidates. It's been very encouraging. That's one of the first points of engagement for me in particular. Yeah, I mean, it's not jumping out at me right now, but
good. Well, just seeing the engagement of the community and people starting to wake up, because there has been that kind of comfortable kind of mindset, which is what makes Idaho great. You can kind of show up here and relax a little bit, but at the same time, it's time to actually move. And I think what we've seen with INL, some of the mandates that we saw coming out with INL, I think a lot of our neighbors have been affected, and friends and family. What we saw with INL really kind of woken off a lot of people up. And so to be able to see our community start to get engaged and excited about these elections has been a huge positive, I think, in this. How can people get in touch with you, donate to your campaign, go knock on doors? How can people help?
So people can help by going to scholzforidaho.com. Again, that's SCHOLZ, like the German chancellor, and just simply contact me. I mean, ultimately, my campaign, as well as some of the, you know, I'll call them outside Senate campaigns, I think they all have a fighting shot. There's a reality with a sitting senator, but I have a feeling we're going to be outworking our opponents a great deal. I see that actually it's breathtaking. I can't imagine bumping into someone passing out flyers for someone like Brad Little.
Right.
Or my Senate candidate. If they would be like some union workers, maybe someone from the Board of Education or something. All the enthusiasm, the ground game is with us.
Right.
There'll probably be more mailers from, I just got a mailer from my Senate candidate. It seemed to say more or less 100% endorsed by the teachers union. Maybe that'll work for them.
Right.
I think it might backfire.
Right.
So that's scholzforidaho.com. Of course, we need financial support and we need people to knock on doors. I mean, that's really ultimately what it comes down to.
Well, and I think, Bryan, you are a great example of a grassroots candidate that actually has a shot. And to be able to look around and see friends and neighbors and even look in the mirror and say, what if? You know, what if somebody actually was representing my views? What if I actually had a voice in my Senate? And I'm so encouraged to see candidates like you, like Christiansen, like some of these other guys that are stepping out and saying, hey, I'm not a lifetime polished politician, but I have a voice and what I have to say matters. And so I think this is such a cool season to step into politics. Even if you've never voted before in your life, this is the time to vote. This is the time to step out and actually research, check out the candidates, check out what matters to them, and let your voice be heard. And that's what's so cool about being an American and loving freedom is you actually can count. And so, you know, just to see these guys that are stepping out and ladies that are stepping out and saying, well, I might not be the most polished person in the room, but I'm an American, and that's what's cool about it, is anybody can have a shot. And so I'm excited to see the future of your campaign, and I hope this isn't the end of it. I hope you move on past May 17th and do great things for Idaho. Anything else that you'd like to add or say to our audience today?
So there's the Republican primary voters. But what I'll add is this year, if you are a disaffected lab worker, if you're someone at the hospital that was forced to either take a religious exemption, essentially beg for your freedom, or take the shot, if you're someone who is involved with the school system and upset about the mask mandates, if you're someone who would like education choice, if you would like to have the chance of money to follow your students, your children, and you make decisions, these are all, people who maybe don't always show up for the Republican primary. This is a year to show up. So with that, I just encourage you to visit the website, scholzforidaho.com, and keep your eyes open for other candidates that are actually here in East Idaho. Maybe, if you know people who are not inclined to do a lot of research, go tell them Doug Toomer's running in 35. Go tell them that Nick Christiansen is running in 32, that Keith Newberry is running in 32. Right. We have some new people there that you can get behind, bring 2 people to the polls, vote. Right.
And, I've had my parents who, they didn't have time or the inclination to research, but they would ask me, hey, who should I vote for? And I'd give them a little sticky note. They'd take it into the polling place and just fill in the blanks. And so if you are somebody that wants to get engaged in researching candidates and checking that out, just make your list, keep it with you in your pocket, and you just never know who you're going to come across that they haven't had the chance, but they trust you enough to take your opinion and your advice and say, okay, well, so-and-so said they were good, so I'm just going to follow them. And there's leaders and there's followers, and we need both at the polls this year. Thanks so much for joining me today, Bryan.
Thanks, Kelly.
Our Republican primary is coming up May 17th, so be sure and be registered as a Republican before then. The views expressed by our guests may or may not express all of the views of the host, Flying Maverick Media, or Stand Up for Idaho. Thanks so much for tuning in.